Hi guys, it's James at cricketbadger.com, and I'm recording this video because I'm a little bit worried, and I'll tell you why. And I've been thinking about this for a while, and the reason that cricketbadger.com has not really given an opinion on the future of English cricket, the move to city-based franchises and how the ECB views the future of T20 in England, is because, quite honestly, I didn't really know where I stood. One day I'd get up and I'd be dead excited. Oh, city-based franchises, it's the future. Everybody else is doing it. Great stuff. The next day I'd be thinking, not quite so sure, is this going to be the death of the county championship? Is this going to have an impact on some of the smaller counties? Is this going to affect Test match cricket? And then over the last week there's been a number of different things happened which has actually started to focus my mind. I don't think I'm any further forward in actually having a fixed opinion on this, but it's just added to the concern, added to the worry, added to the belief that this is a huge decision for the ECB, for the future of cricket in this country. I've got no idea how long this video is going to last, whether it's a rant or whether it's a discussion or whether it's just a cry for help. But it's important because I'm absolutely passionate about domestic cricket, not just in England but around the world. But I'm English, so England is where my earliest memories of watching cricket are, watching the county championship at Yorkshire and Kent and around the country. And the last couple of weeks, and obviously my trip to Abu Dhabi where I was catching up with some of the English counties, is just kind of reminded me, cemented in my mind the fact that it is huge to me. It means the world. I'd basically, that arm, right arm, I'd cut that off now if it basically meant that in the next 100 years English cricket domestically would thrive and be fantastic. Because I care, and I'm sure a lot of you guys care as well about your counties and about the structure and about everything that's happened. I'll tell you what the few things were that have kind of started to make me think about this again even more strongly. There's the Cricket Supporters Association that's been set up online for disillusioned, I guess, supporters to have their say on the ECB's decisions over the next few weeks and over the last few weeks. I had a chat as well on Twitter with Steve Dennison, who's the chairman of Yorkshire County Cricket Club. Got a lot of time for Steve. I think he's doing a cracking job there. And Yorkshire, hand on heart, is my county. It's the team I support. Although as a cricket badger, I'm neutral, obviously. And I asked Steve, as one of the bigger counties, with all due respect to everybody else, Test match ground, etc., are Yorkshire adamant? Are they entrenched in the opinion that 18 counties is the future? And Steve said, yeah, they are. They support a city-based franchise team ethic in the future, as the ECB do, but they are massively in favour of 18 counties surviving and the county championship being strong. But Yorkshire would say that because the championship means a lot to Yorkshire as the most successful team in it. Just get that in. Middlesex the other day turned down a move to change their constitution because of worries about how the land would lie in terms of Lords being a host ground potentially for a city-based franchise. I mean, it should be, shouldn't it? It's the biggest ground, the most well-known ground in the country. But Middlesex don't own Lords effectively. The MCC do. So how does that work? So Middlesex have kind of stuck their heels in a little bit, and unlike Yorkshire, Leicestershire and a few others haven't changed the constitution. So there's confusion there. I then looked at the West Indies squad for the first Test match that they're playing in the next few days, and hardly recognised anybody on that team sheet. And then you look at the IPL, which I'm a huge advocate of the IPL. It's a fantastic tournament, covering it on cricketbadger.com, as you'll have seen. And we're winning some bets as well, just as an aside there. But West Indies cricket is being decimated by the growth of T20 around the world. You've got the Bravos, you've got Chris Gale, you've got Badri, you've got Nareen, you've got a whole host of players that would potentially walk into that Test side, who are now, Kieran Pollard, now seen as journeyman players, who are basically, I mean, journeyman's almost like a derogatory term. These players are bloody rich. They're earning fortunes around the world, playing the Big Bash, playing the IPL, playing the Caribbean Premier League, playing as marquee players, a lot of them, in all of these events. But Test cricket is suffering because of that. Yeah, Test cricket is the pinnacle. It's the, you ask any young player what they want to achieve out of their careers, and the majority, the vast majority, will say they want to play Test cricket. But yet, West Indies cricket is being decimated by this new world of T20. And I love T20. And this is where the confusion comes in, because I want to see England at the forefront of domestic T20. But I don't want to see a situation where Test cricket suffers, where counties suffer, where everything else suffers at the expense or in favour of a thriving domestic T20. Now, there's one thing for sure. If the ECB hadn't got in bed with Alan Stanford of those years ago and been lured by that pile of money at Lords, which obviously was very attractive, the aforementioned character is kind of wearing an orange boiler suit in a prison, and the ECB were taken off track, weren't they? The BCCI grasped the nail, invented the IPL. The rest is history. They're now 10 years in and the IPL is thriving. The Big Bash, thriving, beautiful to watch. Some fantastic entertainment in both competitions, huge crowds, terrestrial TV for the Big Bash, and everything is shiny. Now the ECB want a part of that, and you can understand why, can't you? You can understand why. But then there's the NatWest T20 Blast, which is the domestic tournament, the counties tournament. Where does that leave that? Is that just going to become a second 11 tournament? Did the sponsors of that tournament really sign up to be the second version of T20 cricket in the UK? I would doubt that very, very much. So there's a lot of questions to be answered there. And if we get to an 8-team franchise, city-based franchise, where do they all live? Where do they all play from? Who do you support? I mean, I guess that in my situation, being a Yorkshire supporter, I would support the Northern Nuggets or whatever they're called, if Yorkshire kind of join up with Durham or whoever and play from Headingley or from the Riverside or whatever the situation is. But do I really support Keaton Jennings when he walks out to bat for my domestic side? I'm usually hoping that Ryan Sidebottom knocks his off pull over. You know, how does that work? Does it necessarily follow that a Yorkshireman plays for the Northern Nuggets, or does he get signed by the London Lions or whatever they end up being called? So many unknowns in this that it's hard for a supporter, I think, to get their head around it, and that's where the worry is. But the knock-on effects are worse than that, I think. I had a car journey when I was out in Abu Dhabi recently, and I was talking to a man that knows his cricket, and we were talking about the future for counties, and he basically said that he thought ultimately there'd be 14 counties and that we'd lose 4. And we started talking about which 4 they'd be. And we seemed to settle, and I'm sorry for mentioning these counties, but we seemed to settle on Leicestershire would be in demise, Derbyshire, Northants, potentially Glamorgan, Gloucestershire. And then I started thinking about those counties. You know, I want 18 first-class counties. I've grown up watching 18 first-class counties. In fact, I've grown up watching 17 initially, and Durham came in, much to the my delight, because Durham have been a fantastic addition. Harshly treated, one would say, of late. But, you know, Leicestershire, David Gower, probably the best batsman that England had produced for God knows how long. And look at their T20 record. It's as good as anybody's, if not better. They've won it 3 times, is it? And they are a fantastic T20 side. Are we going to lose them? Because T20 is supposed to be the future. Are we going to lose Northants again? Fantastic T20 record. Ben Duckett, brilliant. Come back to him in a second. The others I mentioned, they've all had a part to play in making English domestic cricket superb. I don't want to lose them, and I don't want to lose any of the 18 first-class counties. And that's the worry. That is the worry to me. Are we creating a landscape where market forces and bums on seats and stuff rule the roost over what is good for cricket? Because the thing for me is the decisions that the ECB et al. Are making should be made for what is good for English cricket in 100 years' time, not what is good for English cricket over the next 5 years. Fashions change, people change, the world changes. You look back in my lifetime about, my mum used to have a computer when they first came out, and it was huge, and it was about 1/1,000,000th as powerful as this phone that I'm recording this on. If that shopkeeper had just kept selling that brand of computer, he would have gone out of business quickly. And if the world stands still, and if cricket stands still, again, it will go out of business quickly. So it has to adapt, it has to evolve, it has to move with the times. But it also has to be very careful to preserve its integrity, and to preserve the traditions, and preserve the things that are so special about our sport. We can't compete with football. We'd love to be able to, cricket would, but we can't, can we? Because, just to kind of like put it into perspective, Wayne Rooney's salary for a year would keep any of the counties in business in clover for a year. Wayne Rooney's, a footballer's salary for a week is probably the rough equivalent of a county player's salary for a year, or a English cricketer's salary for a year. So, the financial differential between football and cricket is so vast that it's just not worth even considering trying to be football. But what you've got to try and do as cricket is to encourage football fans to come and watch cricket too. So there's nothing wrong with that, and that's where the confusion lies, because I'm sure that a city-based franchise thing would actually help that and achieve its results. Back to Ben Duckett, and back to another Ben, Sanderson, who I used to know when he was playing for Yorkshire. Ben Duckett obviously recently played for England. He plays for Northants. I'm sure he's probably got the quality to have found himself another county, but not every player who is from those areas and from those pastures will gravitate to cricket. If you haven't got a county team in your backyard, do you consider cricket as being an option, or do you go down a different route and just end up in an office working? I've done that, but I'd much prefer to have played cricket. Ben Sanderson, who I mentioned, kind of surplus to requirements at Yorkshire, because Yorkshire have got such a massive trench of fast bowlers and seam bowlers, have had for a number of times. And Sando, who played for England under 19s, a very good player, ended up having to move on, and I feared for him that he might have to, cricket would lose him. But Northants took a punt on him, and Northants took him in, and look at him over the last part of last season and the early part of this season, one of the best bowlers in county cricket. Would we have lost Sando in a new world where some of these smaller counties didn't exist? I think we probably would have done. And that can't be good for cricket. It can't be good for the game. It can't be good for young players coming through to see their chances minimised, to see only a certain 14 times 11 places rather than 18 times 11 places up for grabs. In the biggest tournament in the world, where we're going to get marquee players from overseas and less opportunities for English players to thrive in that environment, I don't know if that's good either, is it? Can't be good. And then we've seen, as I say, teams like the West Indies, who are, when I was growing up, the best side in the world in Test match cricket, with Clive Lloyd and Viv Richards and the battery of quicks. And now I hardly recognise a soul that plays for the West Indies in the Test environment. And that isn't good for cricket either, is it? It can't be good for cricket. So the worry for me is that we're making a short-term decision, which is flavour of the month, and T20 is marvellous, and everybody wants to watch it, and it's going to get bums on seats. We're making that short-term decision at the expense of potentially everything else that's important to the game that we love and that we've grown up loving. And that scares me a big time, because what happens in 10 years' time when the moods change again? Because it's easy to change into something new, but it's hard to get back to where you were. Probably impossible to get back to where you were, and it's certainly impossible to restore the faith and the belief and the feel that you have for an 18 county championship, and to get back to that if you lose it. You can't necessarily, you don't have a piece of string where you can retrace the steps and suddenly, we're back to such and such a date, because it doesn't happen. So it has to be that this decision is right. And the thing that worries me too is that the ECB is prone to making decisions and then changing their mind. I did a piece of research a few years back where I looked at the domestic calendar from 1992 when 4 counties came in, 91, 92. And the ECB had only kept the same structure of domestic cricket from one year to the next twice. Every other time, they'd tinkered, they'd changed. They brought in independent kind of like research to look at where the future should be. They decided, oh yeah, after that research, that is the future. A year later, they changed it again because it obviously wasn't the future, but it could have been if they'd actually let it breathe, if they'd actually marketed it properly, if they'd actually trusted their instincts. But they change like the wind. They change with the weather. Atherton, Vaughan or somebody writes a report in the newspaper and all of a sudden, oh yeah, that's the new flavour of the month, that's the best idea, we'll play him in the team or we'll change the tournaments like that. I mean, Vaughan said the other day that English cricket, domestic cricket, has never had so many newspaper inches, but I mean, that is good, but are they the right newspaper inches, or is it because people are actually concerned about domestic cricket? Because I am. And I can see why people are joining a cricket supporters association, because I think a lot of supporters feel disenfranchised from what's actually happening and what decisions are being made, because people behind closed doors in offices who are masquerading as, well, not masquerading, the administrators of the game are making decisions for us. And I guess that happens in any walk of life, doesn't it? And you have to trust them. But all I am hoping is that the people that are making the decisions and the people that are doing the bargaining and the manipulating of fixtures and trying to work out how the landscape looks, just hope they love cricket as much as you and me, because I want to hand cricket on to my son and grandkids and future generations so they can cherish it and love it as much as I have, because cricket has given me a huge amount of joy, massive amount of joy. It's given me employment as well, which is much appreciated, but I love the game and have done since I was 7 years old. And I want it to not stay the same. I want it to move with the times as it has done. But I want it to be based on decisions which are good for the game. And to me, the championship is the pinnacle of the sport. He may get the proverbial one man and his dog sat there at Derby on a Sunday afternoon when it's raining. But I can tell you now, having kind of run cricketbadge.com for a few years now and having worked for Yorkshire County Cricket Club and seen the site stats that come through during a championship match there, and having spoken to people, that it's not just county championship cricket shouldn't just be judged on the number of people that are actually in a ground at any time. And I mean, I've been lucky enough to actually attend more Yorkshire games than others, and Yorkshire get great crowds for championship cricket, but other counties don't so much. But it doesn't mean that people in those areas don't care about it, because what you see on computers is people sat at their desks who can't afford to take the time off to come to a 4-day game, quietly looking at Cricinfo or cricketbadger.com or some other site, or listening to BBC Radio's excellent coverage while their boss isn't looking, because they're desperately keen to find out how their counties are doing. That doesn't mean that they're not supporters, they're not lovers of county championship cricket. It means that just the way of the world these days, they can't get to the matches. We saw the end of the championship last year when Lords, Middlesex and Yorkshire and Somerset at Taunton vying for the championship, and Middlesex coming out on top when hat-trick from Roland Jones sealed victory. And it was amazing, and the outpouring of joy from around the county. How great is county championship cricket? Yeah, have we lost that already? Because I don't think we have. I've seen the first couple of weeks of the season and I think there's just as much love for it as there ever has been, and the performances have been brilliant. I've seen young Ben Code coming in for Yorkshire getting 18 wickets in 4 innings and things like that are brilliant. And we've seen Chanderpaul, Sangakkara, we've seen North East, we've seen all sorts of different brilliant performances around the country, and it's great, it's fantastic, it's a brilliant format. And we've already stripped it down to 12 games. How much further are we going to go with it? It worries me. It really scares me. And the reason I'm doing this, obviously this is totally off the top of my head, no notes. This is just a passion for cricket that's driving this video, and I'd love to know what you know. I would love to know what you think. I'd love to know, are you behind franchise cricket? Do you see any downsides with it? Do you see why I'm a bit concerned? Or are you, like me, worried about the future of the game? I don't want other teams to turn into the West Indies. I don't want England to turn into the West Indies. Are we looking for a world where basically we have a T20 tournament played pretty much every single day of the year? Do we go from the Big Bash into the IPL, into the English domestic thing, into the Caribbean Premier League, into the new South African system, into the Pakistan Super League, into the Bangladesh Premier League, into whatever else comes up, the Sri Lankan top competition, where basically pretty much every single week of the year, Chris Gale is basically flying around the world wearing a different coloured suit, playing for a different franchise. Is that what we want? Because surely the thing about T20 cricket that makes it different and makes it special is because it is different and it is special, and it is currently in a situation where records are tumbling because it's new. When we have it day in, day out, week in, week out, in a different part of the world, on a different TV platform, doesn't it just become mundane and normal? Mundane and normal doesn't get sponsors excited in the long term. Mundane and normal doesn't make me excited in the long term. I wouldn't want Test match cricket. I wouldn't want England to play Test match cricket every day of the year. I don't want T20 every day of the year, and I love the game. I absolutely adore it. But we need to basically think, how many times you hear a player say they're tired, or a coach say, oh, our players are tired. And you sit there and you think, oh yeah, well, yeah, I'd love to do their job. I can tell you now, I did Home and Away with Yorkshire as a journalist for 2 years. And the domestic structure is punishing. You play for 4 days, you finish late, you get on a coach, or you get in your car and you drive miles to play somewhere else 2 days later. Your day off is probably spent travelling. It's a punishing environment where you get up, you have breakfast, you get to the ground, they warm up, they play all day, they go back to the hotel, they have something to eat, they go to bed. The few days off in an English summer, and we're basically setting up a T20 structure which is exactly the same, which is probably even more punishing than that. How many games are played in the IPL and the players get a day off in between? How can you expect the very best players in the world to continue performing at their peak level when you are basically putting them on a treadmill like that? Everybody needs a breather, even if it's just to remember, even if it's just to miss the game for a little bit and to come back feeling hungry for it. Everybody needs that, and the game needs that. So I've got no magic wand. I've got no definitive opinion on this. I've just got a whole succession of worries about what's happening and what's going to happen next. And it scares me. I'm excited at the same time because I think this could be the start of something amazing. But it also scares me because it worries me what the repercussions might be. I'd love to know what you think. Read cricketbadger.com. This video will be on there. It'll also be on our YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. Follow us on Twitter at cricket_badger. And please, please, please tell me what you think about this, because I'd love to hear from some supporters out there. Some genuine supporters who haven't got vested interest in this other than the fact that they love their county. What do you think is the best way forward for English cricket? Tell me on cricketbadger.com. Tell me at cricket_badger, or email me, James Buttler, as in Joss, 2 T's, jamesbutler@hotmail.co.uk. Tell me what you think. Write a piece for Cricket Badger about what you think your concerns are, what your vision is for the future of English cricket. We'll publish it. We'll put it on the site. But you can tell I'm passionate about the game. You don't set up a domestic cricket site without being passionate about domestic cricket, believe me. But I am worried, excited, scared, and a little bit concerned. And I'd love to know what you think as well. So get in touch. Follow us on Cricket Badger. Thanks for all your support, Badgers. And, well, let's see where we go. But hopefully the future is safe. Please let it be safe. Thanks, guys.